Hello, welcome to Omni Yudi. Today I have as a guest Lisa Alexander, the creator of the Alexander method of vibrational sound and energy therapy. Thank you for being on the show, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'd like you, if you can give a short overview about yourself, how you came about creating the Alexander method, and what was your journey in order to come to that point where you created your own method in a Tuning Fork modality.
You know, it's amazing how you even said it, how the journey, right? It's always a journey that leads us to these places. And it really started coming, I think back to my childhood where I was always, you know, I was that kid who always saw her angels and her fairies. And then I went to Catholic school and was told I had to forget all about that. And then I got in trouble in school in like 5th, 6th grade because I had a Ouija board and, and then, excuse me, gave me a talking to. And then when I was 7, I was really confused because in Catholic school, we were learning all about the Old Testament and this fearful God. And then suddenly, like 3rd grade, we get this new nun in, and she's talking about Jesus and this loving, all forgiving, wonderful, you know, master. And I was just really confused. And I remember it was a Saturday night. It was a bath night back in the 70s when I was growing up. And I remember like my mom would put like just this much of water, that was it. And then she'd leave to do something. She'd come back, wash my hair, because I always had long hair even as a kid. And I remember just kind of laying there and I was just thinking about all this stuff going on in school. And I was so like, just a pure child, right? I had just a pure intention. I was kind of like getting angry. And I said, okay, look, I'm confused. You know, now you're told me to fear God, and now you're telling me this is all loving God. So if everything I'm learning now, this new stuff is correct, I'm ready. Take me now. And oh my God, Francois, with that pure intent thought of a child, I was lifted up out of my body, and now I'm looking down at my body, seeing myself in the bathtub, and there's this big like white door of open light that opened up, and I'm going up into this light. Now that scared the daylights out of me. And I quickly said, no, I'm not ready yet. No, I'm not ready yet. No, I'm not ready yet. And I jumped right kind of back into my body. And then over the course of growing up, I'd have a few mystical experiences like this. But then when my father died very suddenly in 2000, I had another one of those, no, I'm not ready. And it was, he died at like 5:30 in the morning. It was very sudden. I was only in my 30s. And I came home that night, I slept in my old room, and in the middle of the night, he grabbed my ankle, and this is physical, this wasn't a dream, he grabbed my ankle, I felt him grab my ankle, I heard him standing at my bed in his voice, disembodied, not in my head, say my name the way he used to, he's like, Lisa! And grabbed my ankle, and I freaked out, and I grabbed the covers, I pulled them over my head, and what did I say? No, I'm not ready yet, no, I'm not ready yet, no, I'm not ready yet. So fast forward a few years, we're coming up to the 2012 change in ages, right? So it's 2011 actually. And at this point, I'm turning 48. And if you're familiar with the Chinese runes, which I was not at all until later, someone told me, 48 is every 12 years, right? There's a cycle in your life, and every 12 years you go through these big changes. And I didn't know that at the time, but my life that year was going through crazy changes. I originally had a production company for a while called Avalanche Entertainment, and little did I know that years later my world would be an avalanche. So my father died a little earlier, but then after that, my mother, in that year, I lost a child. My best girlfriend died. My dog was purposely run over. Everything was stolen from me. We lost our farm. It was just like this avalanche. Every week there was something else going on. It got to the point I pretty much lost everything I wanted in my life. And I'm sitting in the middle of my living room floor, which is about to be foreclosed on, and I have a gun, and I'm just done. I'm spent. And the only thing that kept me from not doing something was I had one of my dogs was purposely run over by some crazy local, but my other dog is a little West Highland Terrier who's no longer with us, but he crawled up in my lap and he licked the tears from my face. And at that moment I said, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Who's going to take care of you? wasn't me. I was worried who's going to take care of him.
Mm.
So I put the gun down and I finally said, okay, I'm ready. I don't know what it is you sent me here to do, but I'm finally ready. You better show me now, and you better show me quick, or I'm out of here. And Francois, within 2 days, I got an old-fashioned letter in the mail from my homeopathic doctor up where I used to live. And she said, I'm into something new. Come check it out. And so I went to check it out, and this gentleman was talking. He was a quantum metaphysician, and he actually worked with the Tuning Fork Modality that he was creating, and it's actually Soma Energetics. David Holtz is an amazing, amazing, amazing man, and I love him dearly, and I'm still in touch with him. And everything he said was resonating. He also is a Course in Miracles student, which I also have become. But he said something, and when he said something, this woman next to me, this like attractive middle-aged woman next to me, blurted out, I keep hearing deconstruction before reconstruction. So I kind of turned to her and I was like, you just described my life. And she said, oh, you're the reason I'm here. And I said, what do you mean I'm the reason you're here? She said, I live in New Jersey, 2 hours away. She said, I know what this man does. I studied under him. I didn't need to be here, but spirit roused me out of bed and told me I had to drive all the way out here to put some light worker on her path. She's got an important mission. It must be you. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away. And afterwards, she said, "Let's have coffee, and we're gonna chat." But long story short on that, because the stories that happened after that, could be a book. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of making them a book. But she did set me on my path. She never charged me a dime. She was dead on with all of her readings. She brought in my family, my friends that I lost. Everybody, like, I had all I had this entourage of spirit around me, and she never missed a beat. And then one day she said to me, you're going to discover something new, the next new thing that this earth needs to vibrate higher. And you're going to discover it. And that's when I thought she was crazy. And I was like, okay, she was really good up until this point. Now she's off. But sure enough, fast forward ahead, I was working with the solfeggio frequencies, and that's Soma's program works with the 6 solfeggio frequencies. And David's really hard on it's just 6 because was a 50-year Pentecostal minister. They worked this out through the biblical, the Book of Numbers, that there were just 6 frequencies. And it drove me crazy because when I was developing my own technique of working with my clients, I would work with the chakras and clearing the chakras, and I would use each one of the solfeggios for each chakra, but there isn't one for in this solfeggio 6, there wasn't one for the crown chakra. And at that time, there wasn't one even on the market. There are now. And so the solfeggio frequencies are mathematical frequencies based in 3, 6, and 9. And it's Pythagorean math. It all breaks down to 3, 6, or 9. Now, I happen to be a big Tesla fan, so those are also important numbers for the universe. And when I worked the math out, I said, well, what would the crown chakra be? It would be 963. And that's when a light bulb went off above my head. And I realized this woman wasn't crazy because 963 was my birthday. I was born in September 63. So forevermore, I have to give away my age. But I'll tell you, Francois, once I added that frequency to my work, it just really took off. I already had people who were dealing with healings, but I started getting people having instant healings. People were having those transcendent experiences, the out-of-body experiences, the deep dream work, the jumping into other realms and wormholes. And that's when people were starting to knock on my door. My clients were like, okay, we need more of this. We need you to teach this. We need you to teach what it is you're doing, because whatever you're doing is working. So that's kind of how it came to that point.
And your work also is actually, if I understand correctly, you're very a strong proponent on using current science to actually justify what you're doing right now, which I think is very important also as we progress through this understanding of sound therapy and sound. And we're just in its infancy right now in understanding sound and its effects. Can you share a little bit more about what your work is about, using the latest understanding in science, finding, and research to justify what you're doing as being something very important for us to understand as we progress throughout this understanding?
Yes, it is. Being a Libra, I'm very balanced between left and right brain hemisphere. And I'm a researcher. And I said, when my clients were asking me to teach, I said, well, no, I'm not ready to teach this until I have a solid core science behind this, and I can actually get this nationally accredited, which I did. And I was very fortunate because I live in Pennsylvania. I'm 2 hours from New York City, and I used to live in New York City, and I'm 2 hours from Philadelphia. So I started accessing, looking up acoustical researchers, and I found some at Columbia University and the University of Pennsylvania, primarily Columbia. I studied in Alexander Knows, no longer at Columbia, but I had access to the research. I studied and trained under them in a variety of ways. And what I found was every time I found a piece of science, that it seemed to back up each piece I was doing. So I would keep developing the system, as far as John Bulio, who came up with the whole research even way back when about how sound therapy releases nitric oxide, and that nitric oxide raises the cerebrospinal fluid if it's done properly. And what I learned then, when I bridged that piece of science with spirituality, when I was doing this particular process where we kind of take the forks as we clear each chakra and then connect the chakras, we're pushing up. Each and every time we clear a chakra, we're pushing that kundalini energy up the ida and the pingala, bringing it in the sushumna, which is the now. So that's the spine. And it kind of made sense why people were having instant third eye openings. Because if we're raising our body, if you think about it being in the cerebral spinal fluid, energetically, that's the kundalini energy going up. So we're raising that up the spine, and people were having that kind of instantaneous opening. And when I read his work, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And of course, the nitric oxide release is a deep relaxation. And the one thing the medical community will say about sound therapy is it reduces stress. And stress is 90 to 95% of the underlying cause of all dis-ease, according to our medical community. So if we're at least reducing stress, you know, we're bringing our body back into homeostasis where it can heal itself. You know, we're getting it out of the fight or flight and into that rest and digest, where we rest and repair our body. So, and what we did was we went to these research labs, and we actually would test people's brain and their blood before and after a session, and we saw that the whole difference in the stress was downregulated, their blood pressure would be lower, their brain patterns would be calmer. People who could never meditate before, it's like we reset something in their brain to kind of help them meditate. Along the way, I adopted a shelter dog, because I work with the shelter animals who suffer from seizures. He's always in my treatment room with me when I work on someone, and he hasn't had a seizure since, and he used to have cluster seizures, because we repattern the brain. And it's just bringing down, getting people out of that stress level. At the very least, we know it's doing that. And then I even hooked myself up to the monitors, and, you know, we saw the difference of my brain before and after. So, you know, before, you know, coming in, talking to the therapist, I was in your beta state of thinking, and high beta state. And then I would work with my forks a little bit, and I wasn't even doing a full session. I would just work with the forks in a very particular order, where I found kind of releases certain codes, because between the tines of the forks, there's always a little electromagnetic charge, and each frequency has a different electromagnetic charge. And by combining them, we can create different things. And so she found I went from a beta to a high gamma state. And the high gamma state is where our monks meditate. So when you can bring yourself into that state where you're kind of outside of your body, and you can control your bodily systems at that point. You know, you can bring your heart rate down and your blood pressure down. So it was, you know, it was thanks to a lot of other people's scientific research. Really, I mean, I give all the people, the pioneers who came before me, credit, and I just kind of found it, compiled it, understood it, and had lots of willing participants who lay on my table and let me play.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that, and I'm probably going to jump the gun a little bit. We're going to share this at the end of the presentation, but since you mentioned about bringing us in a state of really relaxation, in a deep relaxation, able to be in touch with the cosmos, have that Samadhi state of consciousness, which Dr. Gray refers a lot, it opens the door for becoming ourselves ambassadors to the cosmos, inviting other beings from different planes of existence, the different galaxies, and start to join the larger community. So that can be a very nice, beautiful way to assist humanity by using your method to help them reach that level of Samadhi state, you know, which for some people it's very challenging in the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
So So
Yeah.
Tuning Fork can be a way to assist humanity, not just also relieving stress, but those who want to go more in a deep meditative state. That can be a fantastic tool. Was there any research done with that type of, with your method and assisting people reach a deeper state of meditative relaxation?
Yeah, yes. Well, as far as just hooking people up to machines and seeing where their stress or their heart variable rate was. So if you're familiar at all with the Heart Math Institute, so we have a particular way of working deeper with that. And the crazy thing is that I didn't know, I kind of did all of this. I was guided, right? Because it did open me up to my guides. I literally had masters in front of me that I could see with my physical eyes and grab my hand and do like an infinity symbol or show me what to do. Then I had to go back and find all the science. And I said, but if you want me to bring this to the world, you better lead me to the right science. And they did. And the heart math was great because I was doing a meditation using Sphagia forks, using the Om fork and bringing that vibration, the feel of that vibration, right into the heart. But being a certified meditation trainer, I was talking them through a guided meditation to release all of these kind of hurts and experiences from past lives, future lives, multidimensional lives. And what happened is people were like just feeling like the weight of the world was lifted off. And some people who had asthma said they took a deep breath like they've never taken before in their life. And using some of the tools that you can buy online at the heartmathinstitute.org, we were able to test their heart variable rate before and after. And that's really bringing the brain and the heart in coherence, because we know through heart math that there's more ganglia neuronites in the heart than there are in the brain. So really everything starts in the heart, and then it tells the brain what to do and how to, keep the body running and things like that. But, the ancient Egyptians, when they mummified a body, they suck the brain right out because it turns to mush pretty much the instant we die. But the heart can keep on going for a while. They preserved the heart. They knew that everything emanated from the heart. And when we have all the squid machines and the Kirlian photography and all those other amazing machines that we see our auric fields or our biofields, and we see that we're that torus, right? But it emanates really from the heart. So by really using some of the heart math tools in their research too, we were able to see that we can bring that brain-heart coherence together. And although a really good meditator can do that on their own, what I found with my clients, a lot of them couldn't meditate because, just like you said, today's world is difficult, and they'd come in after a hard day of work or dealing with the children, dealing with something, and they just couldn't quiet their mind. But when they're listening to the frequencies, it got rid of the discursive thinking, and the frequencies, they focused on the frequencies. And so the difference between listening to a video, listening to something like a CD or something on YouTube or whatever, and the difference between listening to it live, you're missing the vibration, right? And the vibration goes into the inner ear. So we do a lot of study on how the inner ear and the brain and the electromagnetic fields work in there. So we're stimulating the hair cells in the inner ear, the crystals in the pineal gland, which are the same crystals in our inner ear. So we're stimulating all that. And you lose some of that vibration when you're listening to a recording as opposed to going through it live. So these people it was passive. They'd lay on the table for an hour. I would do this work on them. And it's just as much about bringing sound to the ears as it is about working on the body. And it's when you bring that sound to the ears and you bring it into the biofields and the chakras, that's when we start making those connections to source or higher entities. And although in the beginning, my clients were coming to get out of physical pain, what shifted was people were then starting to have these altered states of consciousness, and they kind of got hooked on that. And that's why they were coming, because I could make that happen for them far more easily and more quickly than years of meditation.
So it's actually a very beneficial understanding of using the tuning fork as being a way to facilitate that ease of being in one's inner meditative state that most of the modern humanity are trying very hard. But like I said, I think the 21st century is very, very challenging, and we need tools to assist ourselves. There's nothing wrong with having tools, right? They're used wisely, and it's funny because also in the Dr. Rupert Franz from Germany, who's a long researcher, and he's actually a psychotherapist. He realized after 35 years, even all the work that he done himself, he himself says that he's still traumatized. So he came to the conclusion that all the modern humanity as we know it, we are traumatized, from birth to going to school to having your first companion. So all these things that are not being, how should I say, worked on, it just stays in our field, it stays in our bodies and not being addressed. So it seems that in order for us to jump from this paradigm to another paradigm, it's a very important that we start focusing on our own inner healing. And it seems that the Alexander method would be a great way to assist humanity to go from that current paradigm to a newer paradigm. But in order to reach a newer paradigm, we have to really heal our own inner temple. And can you elaborate a little bit more the importance of having this understanding that the reason we're stuck in this current paradigm is because the inner hologram is stuck and it doesn't work. So the projector's not working very well. So we keep projecting faulty holograms, and that's what we keep seeing. It's very repetitive, right? It's nations against nations, economic, warfares that we have with each other and between spouse and different gender groups, and misunderstanding. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that, the importance of using your method and your tools, or the Tuning Fork tools, to assist humanity going from this current paradigm to one that we all want, which is peace, unity, cooperation, co-creation.
Exactly. And I love how you talk about that as the hologram, because it's a great book. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's by Talbot, called The Holographic Universe. And I always tell people to read that. It's just amazing how the way he explained the holographic universe and how it works. And then, later opens up to the fact that he actually is psychic, and and just the levels of the hologram. And that's really what it is. I love how you said how the projector's broken, and that's kind of what's happening, and we're not projecting out. And part of that comes from that fear of separation, right? So, we live in fear because we think we're separated. We think we're all separate from each other rather than united, and we're all one source. And that fear is where it creates a lot of our problems. A good way to demonstrate this really is some of my clients' stories. I had one woman who came to me when I was just starting out, and it was interesting because the work that I'm doing now was coming to me in 2011, 12, and 13. So over the course of 3 years, it was a course that took 3 years. And it was those 3 years, the year before this shift of 2012, the 2012, and then the year after. Because the other modalities I was studying all came out prior, and I kept feeling that they were missing something and they were not complete. They were very good for the time, but we shifted into this golden age, and we shifted into this higher frequency, and it just needed something more. And that was what I needed to facilitate. And when I was starting out, I was at a spiritual expo in my area here, and this woman came to me. She had a tuning. She really enjoyed it. She lived about an hour away. So she said, look, I have an autistic son. He's 12 years old. Do you think this would help him? And I said, I can't make any guarantees. Feel free, and let's try it. So she drove the hour. She was a single mom. She had a corporate job. She brought him down. He was a nonverbal autistic child. He did well in school, but he just didn't do well socially. So on the way home, he turned to her and said, I have never felt so much joy and peace. So when you mentioned about feeling peace, he never felt so much joy and peace. So as soon as she got home, she got on her computer and she emailed me right away. And she told me that. And she said, I need to know when you're going to start teaching this, because I wasn't at that time, but I was considering it, because I need to learn this. About a year later, in 15, I was ready to teach it. And she was one of my first students. And she did not come to make this as a practitioner, to make a career out of this. She did this from the pure love to help her son. And she learned it, and she worked with him and her family, because she really couldn't afford to keep driving an hour or you're paying to see me regularly. And I'm like, just learn it. And she did. And then 4 years later, I ran into her at that same expo. And she said, I got to tell you about my son. He's now 16. He works at one of the resorts in the Poconos up here, the Kalahari Resort. He drives a car and he has a girlfriend.
Wow.
So, he moved into that place of peace. And I think that's what a lot of people say when they're on my table. They feel home. So they feel that home of heaven. It's just this homing feeling. One client said that, and she's got a business where she's a dog groomer, and she deals with all kinds of people, and people mistreat their pets, and it's very difficult. And she said, I can handle it better now. She handles the stress better. She handles the the stuff of this world and people just better. She can handle it with a sense of love and peace. And I think, you know, love and peace, love is such that high vibration feeling. If we all just felt that, we might be a little less judgmental of our neighbor, of our nations, of everything else out there.
So we come to understand that sound is actually, as it says in the Bible or different scriptures, it's what came out first, right?
Yes.
And it's very interesting that we have light modalities also. There's nothing wrong with light modalities. I think they're actually doing a lot of research right now in light therapies, which is great. But I think the sound and light together would be wonderful if we can co-create this loving understanding that they all can benefit from one another, right? But the sound would seem to be the first most interesting one that it's getting more and more traction now. It's slowly getting more traction, understanding that even like you said, the Ohm tuning fork, the 136.1 hertz, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that on your website you mentioned that the first thing that you would recommend people is to get that one to start with. Can you elaborate on that? Why is that important for them to start with that first?
It's a grounding fork and it's very soothing. The sound is, I don't know if I can remember I know you won't be able to hear it from my computer, but it's very soothing. And I just tell people just to listen to it. I start and end all of my sessions with the Ohm fork. And you cross it over the head because you're crossing over the corpus callosum. You're trying to connect the left and right hemispheres of the brain together. It can be used, you know, if you're doing a heart-centered meditation to bring that vibration to really feel that in the heart. You know, a lot of ancient cultures, you'll see that they pray here. When you ask a child, you know, where are you? I'm here, right? So they always go to their heart. You can use it for a third eye. If you've got an ache or pain in the body, you can just let that vibration come in there. So it's just a great all-round purpose fork. And, you know, and it is a grounding fork, right? And sometimes, you know, we're not grounded, right? So it's good to ground yourself. It's great before you go to bed at night to sleep. Now, I can tell you when I work on clients, I start the day with it because there might be stress to relax. I use it down on their shoulders and some acupressure points to relax them, the sound relax. And then I start raising all the frequencies. The sphegios are much higher frequencies and we raise that up. But then at the end, a lot of them are kind of traveling out of their body and then I ground them back down into their body with the Ohm. In the beginning, I wasn't doing that. And what was happening was some people would be driving home and my one friend said, oh, I had to grab onto the steering wheel. I was floating out of my body. But now I have regular clients who sometimes don't like when I ground them because they want to stay out of their body. But that's how quickly this can ground you. I mean, you know, certainly I like to walk outside every day and put my feet flat on the ground, you know, no shoes. So that's grounding and feeling that magnetic pull of the earth. But I can't do that in the winter around here very easily. So this is very grounding and just bringing us to a center. So I always tell people this is your first thing to start with. Start here and then raise up higher in frequency, because if you start at a high frequency, it might be very difficult for you. Your energies, all of your electric body, you know, so your meridians, your chakras, your nadis, your biofields, they might not be ready for that higher frequency yet. You need to work up to it. Just like if you go to a gym, right? You start with smaller weights and you work up. It's kind of the same thing.
So interesting that you mentioned that Ohm seems to be something that's very nurturing. It's almost like maybe like a mother singing or toning to her child. Is that type of same familiarity of, would you say that's the same thing that Ohm fork does when you listen to that, the same type of familiarity when your child, your mom sings to you or she hums to you?
Yeah, I actually, again, I love how you say it, humming, because Jonathan Goldman talks about, you know, we have this beautiful sound instrument right here. It's humming, and you can just hum. And yeah, I remember my mom used to hum a lot, and she used to sing me an lullaby when I was a baby. And yeah, that it is this nice soft hum. It's very nurturing, and I love how you equate that to a mother. It's true. It does. It's like like you're being hugged, you know.
So is that almost like maybe the Aquarius consciousness love, what makes us feel so expansive when you hear that little hum? It's just, it's like coming back home of who we really are, which is pure light, sound, and frequency, right?
Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's exactly what I feel like. It's feeling like home. It is home. And in Eben Alexander's book, Proof of Heaven, he said when he went through the different realms, the first thing he heard was that kind of sound of the Om. And then he would go higher, he'd like a spiral. He'd spiral up higher, where he heard more higher pitches and higher tones. But it started at the Om, and then he'd go up a few times and then come back down, and go up and come down. It was very, very interesting book in his near-death experience. So.
It's interesting you mentioned also it's important to ground ourselves, because I think a lot of people, the reason of this current paradigm that is not working, a lot of people want to escape, and they go either in their aura or they go higher, and they tend not to be grounded. So it's interesting that you mentioned it's very important to ground ourselves. I think it's a form of escapism in the 21st century. It's such a harsh reality for most humans that they want to pull in and just escape. So and it's good that you mentioned that, because trying to work the upper forks instead of grounding first keep it out of service.
Yeah, it doesn't serve people. I actually have a warning. Like I developed a fork that's for the gateway chakras, because my clients were, they are, those state clients and practitioners as well. They're constantly working with it. So they could handle more and needed more and wanted more. They wanted more to travel safely in the other realms, because, some of the other realms are not real nice to when earth people kind of try to go up there. So the gateway fork is a very, very high frequency fork. And I have a warning on my website. This is not for beginners. Do not order this if you are not, start with the Om, start with something else, and go through the solfeggios and work your way up. I kind of comes with a warning. So grounding, think about the tree, right? Tree branches can only go up as high as the roots go deep. And, we meet here in the center at our heart center. So.
That's a great analogy, because it seems to me that it's funny, people tend to focus up, and maybe like you just mentioned, if we ground more, maybe we get there faster.
Yes.
Than just try to push up here and not doing down here. So interesting that the grounding aspect is it's not emphasized as much as everybody's trying to push, and doing remote viewing, trying to get a Samadhi state, push. But I think we're not addressing the grounding aspect, which seems to be very basic, but very fundamental in the approach of. And in your method, you explain the importance of what we just talked about, making sure that everything is nice, and you build up one step at a time. You don't go directly for using the upper forks, right?
No. We work up. When we work with the solfeggio, we start at the Oot, which is 396. Well, we start with the Om, and we go to the Oot, which is 396. Then we combined it with the next one up. So we use the Oot for the root. And then at the sacral, we go up from 396 to 417 to 528. But then we're combining them together as well. So you're hearing both the sine wave and the overtone wave. Because when you tap two forks together, you create what's known in sound therapy as an overtone or a microtone. And that's where the magic is and where the coding comes in. And what happened with our Western way of tuning instruments was somewhere around the 17th century, we went from tuning our instruments to something called just intonation to 12-tone equal temperament. Now, other like India and South Africa and Arabic music, they still use just intonation. So they have 24 tones and 28 tones and 26 tones. Well, we went to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, 12-tone equal temperament. We kind of dumbed down our music. And that's where they think a lot of things went wrong, because just intonation, if you think about the Gregorian chants, okay, those were chanted like the Hymn to John of God the Baptist is the most popular. Those were sung to the solfeggio frequencies, actually. And then there are two schools of thought. So there's more of the conspiracy theory, and then there's the more of what happened in the music world. Conspiracy theory is a little more that when in the Vatican, when the popes and when the bishops and the cardinals and the priests heard people chanting these chants, these Gregorian chants, they saw that they were connecting directly to God, source, creator, all that is. So they couldn't have that in the church. You had to go through them, right? You couldn't miss that step. So they were kind of buried in the Vatican vault, and they were rediscovered by just Polio in the 40s. But then with music, what was happening, so if you're familiar with the Mozart effect, well, Mozart was one of the last composers to still used just intonation in his symphonies. And then shortly after Mozart's time, what was happening was the piano was coming into play and the fretted instruments, so like a guitar. Now, a violin is not a fretted instrument, but what they did was the way you would tune a piano in just intonation, the difference in measurement from a white key to the black key, one time it might be 96 cents. It's measured in something called cents, right? 96 cents. The next one might be 102 cents. Then it might be 98 cents, and then maybe 106 cents. But that was a little difficult for them. So they wanted to make it 12 tone, equal temperament. So every measurement would be 100 cents, whether it was or it wasn't. So then they had to tune all the other instruments into that. So they kind of dumbed down our music. And what happened was we lost that natural connection to not only the natural world, but the universal world, you know, to the other consciousness. Because if you think of other indigenous tribes that, you know, using just intonation with their drums, their didgeridoos, they were connecting to their ancestors and connecting to other worlds. And that we kind of stopped and lost that around the 17th century.
It's interesting. And with the tuning forks, that when you mention a different frequency earth, but different chakra, has it actually been measured scientifically? Like each chakra has a certain frequency in hertz, or where do you get those? Where do you get the hertz from in order to say, oh, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that? Where's this coming? Where are the numbers coming from? Can you explain that?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because my professor actually was French Arabic, so he had a beautiful accent as well at Columbia, and he was my go-to. So he was my myth buster for a lot of stuff. And I'm going to see him in another month in New York again. And when I was learning and seeing all the different, you know, this eye candy, all these different forks, which fork should I use? Which fork should I use? And there was a chakra set. And when I asked him about a chakra fork, I said, what's these chakra tuning forks? What's your opinion about these? And he said, they're all bullshit. There's no such thing as a frequency for a chakra. You know, you can't measure. Everyone's got a different frequency. So I use the solfeggio frequencies, and I use them at each chakra center, rising up, trying to align them with the frequency of the solfeggios. Because, you know, going back to a lot of Tesla's work, he said, if you understood the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you'd have the keys to the universe. So I'm trying to align our chakra systems with the universal frequencies, but the solfeggio frequencies are the solfeggio frequencies. They are not chakra forks. I use them in that alignment. And so when you see chakra forks, a lot of forks out there that just have no basis in proof. And when this man has 4 PhDs in acoustical sound therapy. So he said there's no such thing as a chakra fork. So if someone says, I have a set of chakra forks or a particular meridian set, no. They're just fun forks to have, I guess. You know.
So is it because they haven't actually measured the actual frequency of the chakra in the current modern paradigm, or is it something that so I'm trying to understand, is that why are we not measuring those frequencies at every chakra with the instruments that we have in modern science? Is something that we have investigated right now, or there's just no interest of finding those exact frequencies to?
There's because when they do try to measure them, they use when they measure the was it not the squid machine? It's another machine they use, and they can see that we actually have nerve clusters at each chakra center. So we know that there's energy because our nerves are our electrical system, right? So they know that there's energy at each chakra center, and there's also an endocrine gland, right? So those create our hormones and kind of keep us trucking along. So we know that, and science will agree with that. But as far as measuring the frequency of the chakra, everyone's will measure different. And because some people will be their energies will be very, very low, which means their chakra energies will be very, very low. On my website, I've got a picture, I can't remember where it is, I think it's under the Alexander method, of a Carillion photography of a before and an after. And it just shows you that. So someone might I measure them with a pendulum just to see how open they are and how much swing I get. And I show them a before and an after. So they walk in and they might be just barely moving, be really low. Some might be more open and some will be really low. The thing is, with the pendulum, we want to see them moving all exactly the same amount. And then afterwards, that is exactly the effect we get. But something might happen from one session to the next. A pet does, it shuts down your heart chakra. So you're going to contract that energy there. You're going to close off that energy. So even if we had a real solid tool that scientifically would say this is the frequency of a chakra, well, that would be the frequency of someone's chakra, and someone else would test differently. So.
Okay, so that's the current understanding that we have right now of the chakras. Everyone is unique. Everyone is so the approach is made to actually uplift or maybe assist the biofield to remember itself as being its own inner home tuning. Basically, try to find our own inner song inside of us. And the reason we cannot reach our own inner song is because a lot of our biofield or chakra actually have aspects of trauma that still linger in those fields or in the chakra that can last maybe for many decades, right?
Yes. Yes, and it is a combination of those biofields. You know, they're like rings on a tree, right? So you can see by someone's age where something might be going on, and then we'll clear that. But then you also need to, when you're clearing, the problem is when you're combing that field is you're kind of actually pushing it towards the body. So you're getting into the etheric field. So the etheric field is that first body that's just a couple inches off of us, right? And that's the holographic blueprint of our physical body. So when we get, we then need to go into the chakras and the nadis and clear it out of there as well. Chakras are not self-clearing. That's the other thing our professor is real adamant about when he speaks, and he's done TED Talks and whatnot. A lot of people say, oh, we'll just, the chakras are self-clearing, dump the dissonance, as we call it in sound therapy, dissonance into the chakra, and it'll just clear it. No, it doesn't. You need to go, because what happens is you're actually pushing that out here, you're bringing it in closer to the body. You're not actually necessarily getting rid of it. Now, sometimes the body can process it, but you then want to go in and clear the chakra. And what I find, when you do this work, both as a client and then particularly as a practitioner, it really opens up your psychic abilities. I do not put myself out there as a psychic. However, when I work with someone on a table, that's when all the psychic abilities come forward so I can help them. I apologize for my chime. So, the chakras are like a mini Akashic record system. So when I'm in the chakra with the tuning fork, it'll spin one way for the positive energy and one way for the negative energy, and it'll balance in between. So it'll kind of show me, what it'll do is it'll balance the negative and positive sides and bring it into the middle, the now. Okay, that's because that's the only place we can access energy is in the Shusumna, the now. The Ida is if you think of the caduceus, right? The serpent, and the middle is the Shusumna. The Ida is this is Hindu philosophy. The Ida is the one that starts at the left. That's the feminine side. Pingala is the masculine side. It starts at the right. And the Ida is the past. The Pingala is the future. Shusumna is now. And so they cross at the chakra point. So I can actually see where they're where they're unbalanced, where they're too much in one or the other, and we want to balance and bring that right into the middle. So that's really important to do that and open that up. So, but when they become that little Akashic record system, when I'm in there, I can, just like you think of the biofields where I can see what happened, I can see what's happening, in the chakra, where I can see past lives, and I can get details. When I'm in the chakra, I can get details of their past life traumas, and that's really cool. And usually what will happen is I'll say something to my client, well, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever felt this way? And they're always confirming it. And I can work with DNA as well, because we know through the work of Bruce Lipton and many others that, we're not subjected to our DNA. Our environment can influence it. And we know if we swab somebody's mouth and their great-grandmother suffered from the potato famine in Ireland, we can find out how old she was when she suffered from the trauma, because it's passed down to us. But we can release that with certain frequencies. And I've had instances where when I'm in the chakra and I'm finding this DNA stuff, I find out how many generations back it was, on which side of the family it was. And then we clear it. And I'll tell you, my clients will come back to me. They do ancestry.com where they ask their family. And sure enough, they're like, Lisa, what you saw, blah, 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 this is what happened. And and we find it. So now we can even go back and say, what I'm seeing energetically and what's happening in the energy systems, they now can go back and research it. And then they're like, wow, that really did happen to my great-great-grandmother. And we're all carrying that. So.
It's interesting you mentioned that generational trauma, because a lot of humanity, some of the emotions or their reaction or the way, it's almost like a self-feeding loop, but it has nothing to do with them. It's maybe a pattern that's being passed on from so many generations, maybe the great grandfather's side or grandma's side, that's keep affecting that type of loop. And so it seems to me that the excited method would be a good method to actually work and release those ancestral records that keep looping over and over. That's nothing to do with you. It's just you keep repeating the same type of emotional behavior. Or have you had a lot of people that had very successful release of ancestral traumas that they realized, oh my God, I used to drink, now I don't drink anymore. I used to do things that I don't do anymore. Have you had those experiences with some of your clients?
Yes, I have. I've had one where a woman couldn't get pregnant. And we, because of fear of child mortality or dying in childbirth and all those fears, right? Because years ago, a lot of pregnancies didn't make it. The child died or the mother died, and all those fears were embedded in her. And once we found it and released it, she got pregnant. So it was just amazing. I've also had people where they didn't come to me to lose weight, but they just started losing weight. And one was one of those situations where an ancestor, they were very, very poor. And so they never had food, and people died of starvation in this particular village that they lived in. So she instead was like, oh my God, I got food. I got to eat food while I have it, because I don't know when I'm going to not have it. And she was very heavy. And then when we started doing tunings, we found that we released that. And then she started losing weight. But because we were also raising her vibration, and this has happened with a lot of my clients, because we're raising their vibration, they're no longer attracted to that crappy, lower vibrating food. They're not dieting. They just start naturally eating better. They're not attracted to the soda or the crap or animal products, which are really low vibrating energy. They start becoming more vegetarian, and it just slowly and naturally they lose the weight. So
I've come to understand now with living foods now, the frequency is a little bit higher, much higher than actually dead carcasses, that we tend to, we come to understanding that the life force, is what's important, the living force. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because it seems to be all tying together, right? The way you eat is a reflection of how you think, of how you're connected with nature and the cosmos, and you have that inner centered peace once you have all of those things really come together as to one way of have this inner centeredness, And when you mentioned that, when you see the chakra, is it something that you have a natural ability yourself, or something that you actually worked on yourself to actually able to see what's actually in the client's chakra?
That just happened as a result of doing this work. I certainly did not have that ability prior to. As I was doing this work, I had like when someone had a block, because what will happen is when I put the tuning fork over the chakra and it doesn't move at all, that means there's a block. Now I got to figure out what the block is. And it just, the more I raised my vibration, and I'm using, every time you give a tuning, you kind of get a tuning. Yes, you're not laying on the table, but you're bringing all the same sounds around your ears as you are your clients in the same order. And so you're raising your vibration. So, and your guides just kind of come right in. And it just opened up like a funnel. Like I literally see it like a funnel, and then like a Rolodex, a little index. And then I have a way of testing it with the pendulum or muscle testing, just to see, to make sure, okay, it's this many past lives ago, or it's this many generations ago, or which side of the family. And every time I've done that, sure enough, people would come to me with the proof from, thank God for the ancestry.com, or just asking their family. And even with past life stuff comes through. And some of our past lives, mine included, we've been able to find that person because he or she really existed. Somewhere there's a record of them if it's not that far ago. And, these people have been able to like, wow, that was me in another life, and I found some history on her or him. And it just came through. There was a block, and it was such a deep block that it just had to be released. And so I don't know if that's just the guides working with me. I don't have signs to show that, but I know that as I'm bringing practitioners from the basic level, which is the bulk of it. And the more they work with it, they're starting to finally see it's happening for them too. So it's really beautiful to watch them now, like, well, I can do that now too. They'll call me up and they're all excited.
So basically, when people undertake your certification, it's not just to become a practitioner, it's also a way for them to actually heal themselves also first, and then eventually being healed yourself, you have a better understanding, or you can maybe feel more or understand more someone else's biofield. Yes. You find a little bit more sensitive, you know. I think the word sensitive is not well viewed in our society. It's almost viewed as being some type of weak individual, right? But I think sensitive, or being sensitive to one's environment or to humanity, is actually what we can call Christ consciousness, or that level of pure love, pure unconditional love, that we're all one, you know? And that loving understanding. So it's interesting to find out that is a healing journey of itself. Taking the course, it's not just being of service to others, but being of service to yourself also as a student. And it's funny that you mentioned before that it seems to me in the Tuning Fork world right now, as we understand, is some of them focus on the acupressure points using Tuning Forks. Some others focus on the biofield aspect. Some focus on the chakra only. It's funny that you actually mentioned all of them, but you said that all of them are important and all of them need to be addressed. So not one is better than the other. It's just some of them tend to focus on biofield, chakra, and acupoints. So from your understanding and your experience, it seemed to be very important to address all of them, not just one particular aspect of so that's what the Alexander method is really bringing home, is that we need to address all of them, not just one particular. Is that correct?
Yes, it is important to just solve. And Donna Eden, in her book on energy, she's an amazing energy pioneer, and she calls them the 7 electrics. But you know that we're an electric body and we're an electric system. So it's kind of like if you think about your car, you're not going to just work on one part of the car. You're going to make sure all the parts of the car are working together, or any mechanical thing. So you want to make sure that the electricity is getting to the living room, and the electricity is getting to the kitchen, and it's getting everywhere. So I find that we're treating it as a whole. We're not focusing on just one or the other, because energy has a tricky place. So it's a tricky thing. It knows where to hide. So if there's distance in the body, depending on when you get that client on the table, who knows how long they've been walking around with this. If it's a DNA or an ancestral thing or a past life thing or childhood trauma, they could have been walking around a long time with this. So it might have worked its way from the biofields and into the electrical system of the acupuncture. It could be in a muscle at this point now. So we need to trace that and find where that is to get rid of it. It's not enough to just treat a chakra or the chakras, or we're a system, and the whole system, it's music, man, right? It's conducting a symphony orchestra, and you need the entire symphony to be in tune so that it sounds harmonic and beautiful.
And would you say also a possibility that maybe even the soul can be traumatized by having different life experiences in different galaxies or different multidimensional realities, and some of the experience that haven't been addressed in those different dimensions or different galaxies, and you come here as a human being, that also can affect you also. It's not just ancestral lineage on the current Earth planet, but also it can be addressed multidimensionally, trauma. Right?
Absolutely. And I've seen that. And I didn't start seeing that until the last couple of years, because I never, my being is from the angelic realm. That's kind of where I tend to stay. But then one time I was at one of those expos early on, and I was working on this woman, never worked on her before. And at the end of my thing, I always clear the fields in a figure 8, in a particular process with the angel forks. And these are great for clearing rooms, clearing yourself. Rather than sage, you use the angel forks. They're very high frequency, or in the 4,000 range. You never put these in your ears. They'd hurt, but they're great for clearing space. But I use them above and around the body. And I went to pick them up. And as I went to pick up the angel forks, I saw, now this was my third eye, I'm at an expo, but I saw this guy, and at this point, I'm really not down the path of aliens at all. Not that I didn't believe or disbelieve, I just don't go there, right? And there's this kind of like, he got this hood, he almost looked like a little I don't know, like it was a black helmety hood, and he was short, and he said, no, not those. She's not from your realm. She's from our realm. So, okay. So I didn't use the angel forks on her. And then she asked me about, the session, and I said, I didn't know her. She's now become a client and she's learning this, but at that time I didn't know her. I said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but towards the end, at the very end, I bring the angel forks to just bring everything into that high angelic realm and bring the frequency up and clear everything out. And when I went to grab them, this being kind of popped up and told me no, and told me why. And she said, what did he look like? I told her. She goes, oh yeah, him. He's always around. Yeah, I'm from the galactic realm. I'm from the Galactic Federation. So, it's like whenever I think the universe just sends me something and say, come on, Lisa, you got to get on board with this one too, and what happened recently, about the past 2 years, when I do past life regressions, because sometimes something pops up past life that we just kind of need to address. And I've had a few where it wasn't a past life, it was an interdimensional life. And I'll tell you, when the clients describe to me what they're seeing, it's really cool. So I'm learning about all the different dimensions by assisting my clients transport themselves there, in a very safe, loving environment. And we get to that frequency where they can hop into that realm. So I'm learning so much almost firsthand, working with people and bringing them to these places. And it's wonderful that people are coming to me who are open to that.
Well, I think it's very important to understand that we actually are multidimensional beings, and to work on the horizontal healing aspect is great, but we need to go vertically also with the healing also. So, what I think is beautiful about the Alexander method is it can be of service to those who actually been traumatized in the secret space program. That this has been coming out since 2015. A lot of these people that have been in those programs can actually benefit from having a session using the Alexander method, right, to help them recall aspects of the time that is spent there. And so it can be a very, very wonderful tool to be of service, not just horizontally, but also vertically, right? So it seems to me it's very encompassing. And most of the current understanding of the allopathic model seems to be dealing on the horizontal level, very 3D, which is great. We need that. It's perfect. We need that. But it's very rare that you see a modality can actually work also vertically, right?
Yes.
So it's very important.
Yeah, you do have to work vertically. And I'll tell you, I didn't, until I started working with people, or the universe was sending me people with these issues, I might not even believe that some of these things existed, but I've been seeing and experiencing it firsthand. And there's some stories I can't tell you, but there are, we have people who have to work within the government, and they're working with all, the government knows so much, all the governments, right? They know so much about the interdimensions, and they have remote viewers, and they have all this. And I've worked with people who work for the government, and they're traumatized with the things that they've seen and been put through. And I've even had, I have some clients who travel the astral plane a lot. And, the astral plane has very specific rules, and you got to be careful when you go in there. I've been in the astral plane. Sometimes you get bullied. And what one of my clients said is, well, a lot of those people who are bullying you and trying to push you down, getting you out of there, are actually, our U.S. government has people in the astral realm policing the astral realm, which I was blown away. I mean, when he told me that, and this guy is the type of guy who travels to all kinds of dimensions and realms. He's one of my real high-end clients. He already was doing that before he came to me. And I drove all the way from North Carolina to see me. He was actually just here a few weeks ago. He heard me speak at the Edgar Cayce Association of Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach. And he drove all the way up, and he said what he got from the session, which really helped him, is one, we released some interdimensional lifetimes that were causing trauma that were actually kind of happening at the same time, right? So there's parallel universes. And what he found was, because of the higher frequencies, he was able to contact with higher vibrating beings, higher ascended masters, higher people. And now he's finding that when he's traveling a lot, he's traveling more safely. Now, he's one of those guys that when I grounded him, was really disappointed I grounded him. But he had to drive back to North Carolina. And like you mentioned before, some people do use that as an escape. And I'm very cautious to tell my clients that you can't escape there. You need to try to be in body as well. Visit, understand all of these worlds together. But, you know, the great Buddha, you know, yes, the monks go away to meditate, but Buddha always said that bringing the practice down into the village, into the people, is really where you're enlightened, is really where you're making the most impact. So we're not at a place where we can hide ourselves away in monasteries. We need to be able to integrate that work and help others around us just by being that vessel of love and light.
I think I think I'm going to put the emphasis on this again. I think it's very important that you actually offer those services to your clients to address traumas in a vertical understanding of multidimensional physics, because there's a lot of interdimensional parasites, which we come to understand, referred to as AI or archons. These are the current modern terms that we use for ancient terms as the jinn or demons or whatever you want to call it, reptilians, draconians, you know, those from Zeta Reticuli. Not all of them are malevolent, some of them are benevolent. So it's a whole range of entities or race or people in different star systems and different dimensions that some of them don't necessarily have the best interest for humanity. So it's nice to hear that you're actually working with people to assist them to liberate from those interdimensional parasites or beings. And yeah, you have beyond the astral, you have the causal, you have the mental, you have the etheric, you have the void, and you have beyond the void, which is a very high realm than the lower five that we're accustomed to. So it's a big cosmos. You know, the cosmoverse is huge, it's multi-dimensional. There are many cosmoses in the creation, right? So, and offering that service, I think is very important, because I think it's time for us as a humanity to understand there's more than just horizontal. It's vertical, right? And there's many different steps to the multidimensional understand physics. And I think a modality that addresses that is actually is needed now, because we're going through a lot of big transition on this planet, and we're being when we need assistance. And if we have modalities that can assist humanity, I think it's great. I'd like to shift a little bit more now about your tuning forks that you have for your certification, and because there's so many out there in the markets, and can you please clarify the importance of having quality grade tuning forks? Because I think a lot of people either know or don't know. I think it's important to clarify that, the importance of have quality tools when doing this type of work.
Yes. If you give me a really quick second, I can get you another fork to show you a non-quality fork. Do you mind?
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for enjoying this show. I hope this is something that you find interesting. And here's Lisa.
So, you know, people, because they want me to sell their forks, send me stuff, which is great because it helps me. My forks are medical grade in the United States by Medivibe. They also make Eileen McCusick's forks and Soma's forks. Now, mine are custom made just like hers for a higher quality aluminum alloy. I make sure mine have a much longer stem because it helps us for our work. And then one of my signature features is, it's kind of crazy. I was a model and actress when I was younger, and my first commercial that broke me into the market was the Bedazzler girl from the 80s. So I actually put crystals on the bottom of my forks. So my crystals have, so like my pineal has an amethyst. So each, the solfeggio has a different color depending on which fork you're using for which chakra. So I put crystals on the ends of mine. And if you're a practitioner, they also have a special holder. But so someone sent me forks, and just to kind of show you an example. So if you saw this fork on Amazon, it would look pretty good. You're like, that looks good. And it's probably only like $30, right? And you'll see my fork, the same fork. So if you can see it, mine over here, the 136, the ohm, has a longer handle, right? It's got my, just has my, my name website on. It's got a longer handle, but then also look at the heads. So if you see, my head is this one. See how well that's made, and look at the other one. It looks like it's going to fall off. They're not even aligned properly. But if you were to see these, you know, when you see them side by side, you can really see the difference. But you would think this would be a fine fork until you compare it to a really good fork. So it's having a aluminum alloy. Brings in the microtones and overtones we talked about in music. So if you think about singing bowls and gongs, they have microtones and overtones, right? That's a tone over tone, very important. If they're made out of extruded steel, stainless steel, they're not going to have any microtones or overtones. So it's a very specific way that they're made. And you know, quality forks are important. They just really are. And I personally, I just love having the longer handle, especially when even when you use a vibrational fork like this. So like the ohm, what you would do is you'd find, like, I have a nice kind of meaty part of my hand. I use this, and then you get the sound. What happens is this starts to vibrate. It pushes the vibration down through the tines and then down through the stem. And that's when you can put that right on your body and actually feel the vibration come there. Now, something like the pineal or the gateway fork, you'd hit on the side of a puck. So you'd go, so you hit it on the side, not flat. You'd always hit it here. And that's more just for sound at the ear. So they're medical grade. They make them, medical community uses tuning forks, like osteopathic doctors use them for testing your reflexes. The 128, which is very similar to the ohm, it's just a little smaller. The ohm's 136, the 128, the middle C on the fifth octave, which John Bulio is very famous for. Is the one that in EMS people, the emergency service people, will carry to test a bone. Because what happens is if you were to sound the fork and put it on a broken bone, it would vibrate the bone and the bone would hurt. So they used to call it a poor man's x-ray. And it kind of helped them with triage to figure out, oh, that person's bone is broken. When you get them to the hospital, get them into x-rays right away. So the medical community does use those, and they're all made by the same company that makes them for the medical.
So it's interesting that the came to find the aluminum was the best for tuning fork versus other type of like maybe why not titanium or why not, you know, other, why did it just, this is accidental that it came to aluminum, or it's just
you know, I'm not sure how they came to that. It's a very specific aluminum alloy, which they're not going to tell you what it is, because if they did, then their competitors might start making that. So I don't know their exact composite of that, but I've bought everyone's tuning forks in the world out there. I have thousands of dollars of tuning forks testing everything. And Medivibes, excuse me, were definitely the best. And that's probably why, you know, and Eileen uses those as well. Soma uses those. John Bulio uses, he has his own company called Biosonics that they make theirs, and Jonathan Goldman uses Biosonic forks. The problem I have with Biosonics forks is they have a really short, their forks are short. They have a short stubby stem, and their aluminum alloy isn't actually as good as Medivibes, because Medivibes makes for the medical community. So they have to be held to a higher standard.
So you really highly recommend people to really invest a little bit more, but get quality aluminum surgical grade, because it's so important to have the right tools, you know, when you start doing this practice. You know, and since you mentioned about the little crystals that you put at the end of your tuning fork, it's interesting because we understand now the piezoelectric effect. So can you really explain to us the effect of striking the tuning fork and have that piezoelectric being transferred to the crystal and have the additional benefit that no one is using out there, but only you right now? Can you really share with us the benefit of having a crystal inside the tuning fork and what it really does in your sessions or to assist people?
Well, what it does is a couple things. When we're using it directly on the body with some of the weighted forks, it actually, because it has a point, it actually helps focus the energy more into that into that particular acupressure point or the nerve or wherever we're at, or even on the chakra. When we work on the chakras, I actually have people, I don't sell them. They can get them anywhere, Etsy, eBay. It's just a flat crystal. And it helps them as well know where the chakras are. They lay crystals out on the person's body, and then they'll actually put the vibrational fork over the round, small, flat crystal, and it'll dissipate that energy and move it outward. So it helps amplify the energy a little bit. The other thing we use it for is in the solfeggio set, so that a practitioner can more readily and quickly identify which fork he or she is using at the chakra. So I have colored bands on them, which is also their holder, so that it kind of works a little bit more like a pendulum. And the stones are corresponding to the chakras. So it helps for them for identification purposes. And the bottom line is, one of my clients will say, it's just really cool bling. They just love having the crystals at the bottom. They just like just having that little extra thing there. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me shut that off right away.
Oh.
I actually have an old-fashioned hard line that I can't shut off because it is hard-lined. It's wired in, so I can't actually shut it off. So I definitely apologize.
But you know what? It seems to be a bit more beneficial having the crystal inside a tuning fork versus putting it on the. So there must be a reason why you put it inside a tuning fork. There must be a benefit of doing it this way versus using the crystal, then putting tuning fork on a crystal.
Well, some people do that. They'll grab a crystal and then they'll use a crystal separately, and then they'll do that. The benefit for me is just it's much easier. It's already there. It's always with the fork, so a fork to me is its own energy, its own entity. I have some students who say my forks, they say their forks literally talk to them. I always tell my students before we get to the hands-on portion, there's a lot of science they have to learn. We take them through Max Planck, through Albert Einstein, through Tesla. We run the numbers, Pythagoras. We take them through the history of sound. We take them through the medical side. We take them through stress. They learn a complete thing first. They're becoming metaphysicians first. Then after weeks and weeks and weeks of that, they finally get to touch a tuning fork. And I tell them when they first get their forks, lay them out flat, the solfeggio set, under their pillow, and sleep with them at night, so that the forks start to tune with them, so that they'll move. Because we don't move the forks in my modality. The forks have to move. So that we let the forks direct and tell us. Now, certainly when you're combing the biofield, obviously you're moving it. But when we put it over a chakra, you can't move it. That's why we have these particular holders. So you're not really even touching the fork. So it'll pick up on the charge of the chakra, and it'll let you know where it needs to balance it. And it'll either balance it, or if there's a major block, it won't move at all. And then it's telling you, okay, we need to do some work here. So the crystals to me just add just another element of energy, is really what it is. And keeping them on the crystal, it's just always there. They're married together, they work together, they talk to each other.
It's true, because I've never saw no one doing this, only you. It's very interesting that you actually incorporate them in. So it must be a very expensive process to have them built specifically in that regards. And so basically the accelerated method is focusing on the automatic, many different areas, like the glands, the heart, the nervous system, the biofield, the chakra. Can you really summarize what is the method and what are the steps in the learning process, if it's offered in person or if it's offered online, or the people have the option of one or the other? Can you just share with the audience here what is it that the accelerator has to offer for society at this moment?
It completely opens, clears, balances, and aligns the entire energy system of the body. So from the biofields to the chakras, to the nadis, to the acupuncture points, and we can even work physically on the muscles, nerves, glandular system, etc. So we open, clear, align, and balance the entire system of the whole body, not just the physical body, of both the spiritual and the physical body, the whole holograph, right? So we're working on the whole holograph. And it'll help assist people in both spiritually, mentally. We've dealt with a lot of people who have some mental issues, emotionally, and of course physically. And when you learn it, you can learn it. I only taught it live for a while, but then people were reaching out to me from kind of all over. So we took about a year, and then we created an online version. And the online version has All the modules are there. They're pre-recorded for you to work self-paced. But then I also get on live every week with you and teach as well. So you have both the online stuff that's self-paced, because I used to actually be a teacher, and I went to school to be a teacher, and everyone learns at a different pace, and everyone learns either through audio, visual, or working hands-on, right? They're tactile. So I like to offer that option for everyone. So if it's self-paced and they're really busy, they're a working mom, they can take as much time as they need. I don't cut anybody off ever. My students are forever students. We say it takes about 12 weeks to go through it, but you might have to stop the program for a while if something comes up. So you can always pick it up again. And then we have all the videos for the how-to portion, but again, I get on live with you and we work. I have Zoom, so we can work with Zoom, and we work, they get a body on the table, and they've watched the videos, they've practiced, and then we start tweaking the method. Now, what the weird thing is, I've only been teaching online. This is only my second year teaching online, and they're very small groups, but the universe has a way of bringing people together. My very first pilot online group, there were 7 in them, and every single one of them had to come through Pennsylvania for some reason that year, whether it was a wedding or a class reunion or something. And so they did everything online and live, just like you and I are here, but then they also came and worked with me one-on-one in the studio. And then I got to really tweak and do everything. And I tell people that offer's there for all of you whenever. And I travel a lot now to speak. So sometimes I might be in a city where someone took the online program and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there. Let's get together. Let me just work with you hands-on and certify you live. So yeah, and they're still working with me. It's at that point where I have one person I'm starting to train to help me in teaching, but you know, at this point, they still get to work with me as long as I'm on this earth. So that's always a good thing. And like I said, my students are my children, so no matter how old they are. Some of them are older than I am. I have a couple 70-year-olds who learn this just because they wanted to. Yeah.
Well, and actually, you know, there's no age for learning, right? We come to understand with neuroplasticity right now.
That's right.
And those people in that age group can help their own people in their community. So it's being of service at whatever age group that you are. So the age guys, forget it, 80, 90, go ahead, take Alexander Method's online course, go for it. We need all the help we can need right now on this planet. We go through major transition now. It's great that to have you create your own method, and that actually is very encompassing because, like I said before, the other teachers use other focus on biofield, which is great. Some focus only on chakra, but I think it's important that we, like you said, it's not just about the chakra, it's the nadi, right? It's the endocrine system, you know, it's the musculoskeletal system, right? So it's important to touch every facet of who we really are, right? And it's important that people understand that your method offers that, because there's a lot of confusion out there. I think that by just doing the acupoints, you'll be okay, and by just doing the chakra, you'll be okay. Yes and no, and it's important to really have a very encompassing approach. And I think the exam method offers that, which right now the other methods don't do that, or the other approaches don't do that. So did it come naturally to you that, oh, I have to address this and this and this? You understand the importance of addressing all of it instead of using some?
It's almost like it's truly what I was sent here to do. It really came naturally. If you would have asked me when I was 20 something I'd be doing this, I would have thought you were crazy. But it came naturally. Things would come to me in my sleep, and it just flowed. It flowed like conducting a symphony orchestra. Okay. And I do understand music, and I was taught by my band director in high school how, to conduct the symphony orchestra, and that's really what it is. We can tune a piano, we can tune an instrument, and our bodies are instruments, so they can be tuned, all of our bodies. And back to Talbot and the holographic unit, we're a hologram, and there's I see, when I see someone on the table, I just see this light body, and I know the whole light body needs to be cleared, and like a river, it needs to flow. There should be no dams in the way. And like I said, blockages can hide in different places. So depending on what stage that client comes to you, they might have come to you after they've tried everything else and the cancer's already in their body, or there's something in their bone and in their muscle. And then you really do have to work every system. You've got to work it out from where it's now residing and pull it out through all those other systems. So yeah, honestly, Francois, it came so natural to me. It's like, I once saw my contract, and this was literally what I contracted to do. And in my contract, I said, if I don't get to a certain point by a certain age, pull the rug out from under me. And that is exactly what the universe did. I was not seeing the signs. I kept saying, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm fearful. I'm fearful. And they just said, yank, we're taking it all away from you. You have nothing left. You've got to do this. And, so, it's kind of crazy, but my parents leaving me early as they did is what I knew they had to leave, because had they stayed around, I wouldn't have pushed myself to do this and losing everyone else. So yeah, it truly came naturally. I was sent here just to do this work. So
no, it's beautiful. That's why I want to have an interview with you, because nowhere on YouTube right now actually we're talking about your method, and there's other procedures on the internet that we're talking about, like we talked about the path of the chakra, but I think it was important that humanity understands your method, and it's being offered on YouTube, so they really understand what you have to offer as the Alexander method. And we do appreciate all the other methods also. It seems to be yours is very encompassing, which is actually embracing all the other methods also as being wonderful, and you create a very holistic tuning fork approach, which we're using Dr. Boyer's Tuning Forks understanding, or Elaine Acoustics understanding, and other people's understanding about the chakras, and put them all into one package, which you have offered as the Alexander method. So I'd like to thank you for that, for bringing this to humanity, which is beautiful. And I'd like to ask you one last question is, some people use remote sessions by using tuning forks. Is this something that you have explored, or what are your feelings about that? Is something that eventually will progress to that, maybe having this as a way of assisting people on different continents? So what is your feel about doing remote session using tuning forks?
Yes, I do remote sessions because people were asking me, and I wasn't sure it would work. And then they said they actually felt a shift. What I would do is I have them lay down on a sofa or a bed somewhere, and I just ask that they keep the phone near their head, because I actually lay out chakra stones right on my treatment table, and I put the phone where their head would be, and I still run all the sounds past their ears in the right order, in the right combination, because it's science, right? So I got to meet one of my heroes, Greg Braden, a while ago, and he liked my work. He signed in my book. He really liked my work, and he said, what you're doing is science, because you're following a very set procedure, a set method to produce the same results. And I have found when I have had some practitioners who decided to go off and try to do and add other things, they weren't getting the same results, and then they were losing their clients. Yeah.
That's important. That's why I'm very happy to see that you have a specific method for doing remote. So it's not just remote is cool, but there's a certain method behind doing the remote sessions.
Remote and even the live sessions. So when I've noticed now that I have enough students is when, students will come to me and say, well, something's not working right. And I ask them what they're doing. Oh, well, I saw some YouTube video about this, so I added that. I saw something I added, they started adding stuff. And I said, can't do that. One, it was divinely given to me. I don't really take credit for it. It just, it came, right? And then I found the research to back it up. And the research, like Greg Braden said to me, he says, if you're doing the same thing in the same way, you're going to have the same results. So then their clients weren't having the same results, and they weren't as good. So I found my students who were staying true to what they were taught are doing phenomenal work, helping so many people, and their businesses have really grown. But those who kind of jumped off the charts and decided to just, they bring ego in and they start doing this. And I keep saying, it's not even mine. I mean, I wasn't even born with the name Alexander. That name was given to me too by the cosmos. So and with the remote sessions, I do it just like I would someone's on the table, but I do want them listening in on the phone so that they can hear the sounds. That's really important to me. Now, some of my people I do remote actually have the tuning forks. So what I'll do is while I'm doing that, I'll have them sound their tuning forks so they're getting that vibration right into their ears as well at the time. But when you get down to the energy component, you can work with the frequency and energy energy remotely. I always think it's best live, personally, but sometimes you can't do it live. And people have told me that the distance healing has worked for them.
Because it seems to be affecting the morphogenetic field, right? I mean, if you can actually, we understand more by Robert Sheldrake's work, the morphogenetic field is very interesting, that by doing a remote session, we can actually affect that, right? Yes. And so you can actually have clients using Skype or Zoom or their phone, either or. You can offer those services. Or if they're remote area, they don't have that, you still can offer that also.
Yes.
And, okay, so it's not something. And just before leaving this interview, I'd like if you can show one of your most interesting tuning forks called the Gateway tuning forks that you've designed. Can you explain to us how you came to actually design those? And what's the difference between those on the market that you use for the pineal? They call them pineal tuning forks. And what's the difference between that and what you've called the Gateway forks that you've created? If you can share with that and give us a little sample for us.
So there's a pineal fork on the market that's called a pineal fork, which I have, which is about 500 hertz. Mm-hmm. And when you order the set, you actually get a CD meditation that has that frequency on it to prepare you for this much higher frequency. Mm-hmm. So, and that fork deals with the pineal gland as the endocrine gland, the human gland that it is. And I do use that fork in my treatment. It helps get some of the calcification that's occurred on your pineal gland. So it deals with the pineal gland as the gland, right? So what we do is we do this in a set. This is a pineal fork and the gateway. So we start with the pineal fork, and this was discovered by John Worley Keeley back in the 20s and 30s, and then the frequency, and then it was proven in 2014, the University of Michigan. They discovered that, yes, indeed, we do have little piezoelectric microcrystals within our pineal gland. And they're the exact same crystals that are within our inner ear. And they're the only two places in the body that we have discovered these. So the pineal fork, and I made it purple and I have an amethyst on the end, is for the pineal to activate the crystals. So the one that you see in the market is to work with the pineal gland as the gland. So it's about a 500 hertz. This is much, much higher. And it activates the crystals, right, in the pineal gland. As Joe Dispenza says, when you activate those, it's kind of, he uses a sexual reference. The pineal gland ejaculates a fluid that they've actually seen. So, but you use that first to get the pineal gland activated, and then the gateway works. So what was happening was when I left my body, I would leave through my crown chakra. And so just as I came up with the 963 for this frequency for the crown, I wanted to know, well, there's all these how high up do I have to go so I can really clear this path and know that I'm safe and I can leave my body in a very safe, clean way. What's that, that's why I call it a gateway, because that's where I was leaving my body from. And same with my clients. So I took this highest chakra up here, which I guess everyone has a different name for it. I call it gateway. Maybe it's the 12th or 13th chakra, but anyways, it's pretty much just about 3 feet up above your head. And I just worked the same formula for the solfeggio frequencies until I could find that right frequency that it was in there. And then I had it patented and copyrighted and all that, because I didn't do that with the 963. And at this point, my business was growing, and my manufacturer highly recommended that we did that. It also, that way it's not just out there for, like I said, this is that fork that I say, you got to work up to this fork. And I wouldn't want this fork just to end up in everybody's hands. So sometimes I almost regret sending it out there. I use it in my master level 3, but a lot of my clients were asking for it because they astral travel, and I wanted them to astral travel safely. So what you would do is you would start first with the pineal gland, and you come to your head to both sides, and you take a deep breath in each time. We do everything in 3s in this modality, so honoring Tesla. Then you would come around your head as you're breathing in the sound. And this is high pitched, but it's not so high pitched that you can come to your ears with this, provided you've worked your way up to this. Then we kind of do just bringing it up and over from the brow, the crown, to the occipital lobe. So and it comes with instructions. So you do this in much more slower pace than I'm doing. But then you follow this up with the gateway, which you do not put to your ears. It's a very high frequency. And with this, it's really literally just going as far as your arm will go And I can feel that energy. It feels really cool. So you do that 3 times. And you feel it. Wow. You just really feel that energy. And that's what my clients say. They're like, they really, really feel that energy. And you just do that 3 times, and that clears that. A lot of psychics come to me prior to a gallery reading to open and clear them. And what they do is they buy that set, and then they don't have to see me as often. So they use that set before they do a session, because it really opens this up. But again, you would use those before you go to bed at night, because it might keep you up unless you ground yourself with the Om. So it comes with specific instructions. Yeah.
So again, it's still a lot to learn, what to use and not to use, when to use it, AM or PM, ground or not to ground, if you're a psychic, a remote viewer, or a meditator. And so, I mean, we still have a lot to learn as what tuning fork is best and what to use. And some of you have some tuning forks also for nerves specifically, right? Can you just adjust? I forgot to bring that. It just came to my mind. You have a nerve tuning fork, so
yeah.
so it's amazing.
Yeah, I want to tell you real quick too about the gateway pineal. When I was in test market for this with my clients, they all got the prototypes we had made, which weren't purple; they were just all plain at that point. And the responses that were coming back too were that people were having more vivid dreams. They were having really funny, crazy dreams, and they were sleeping better, because it is working in the pineal gland, which releases melatonin. And melatonin helps us dream, and it helps us sleep. And that was a byproduct. I didn't expect that to happen, but that's what was happening. So it helps for dream work and helps for sleeping. But again, I wouldn't say to use it before you go to bed, but if you use it earlier in the day, it's still going to continue to help with the release of melatonin and sleeping. So
it's really helpful for those that have a hard time sleeping. I mean, it's a very wonderful tool for them to have, as a type of home tool to assist them instead of taking drugs or instead of taking. So it's so those who really have issues with sleeping, that'd be something they can actually obtain from your website.
Mm-hmm. And they would do that if you're having trouble sleeping, you would do it in the morning, actually, when you wake up, rather than later in the day. So
that gateway and that pineal can be a fantastic tool for meditators, fantastic tool for remote viewers, those who are learning remote viewers, or those who just want to expand their level of consciousness and reach higher aspects of their multidimensional selves, right? No one has talked about that. I'm so happy that you've created that tool. That's another tool in our toolbox to assist humanity, right? I think right now we need all the tools. We need living nutrition. We need a good way to exercise, breathing deeply, yoga or chanting. And it just came to my mind that why would tuning forks be a little bit more, how should I say, more efficient than singing bowls? Can you elaborate? It just came to my mind. It seemed to be more efficient, but can you share with us why would you know it's more efficient than, it's nothing wrong with singing bowls, but it seems to me that tuning forks would tend to be more efficient.
Yes. I'm really glad you brought that up. I think one of my guides was talking in your ear to bring, because that's a great point. I have singing bowls. I studied under Alexander and Mitch Knorr, and they're international people. They believe in the ancient bowls, so they made me buy these really expensive antique Tibetan bowls. They're all hand hammered, so they're beautiful. I have a huge 32-inch Patisse gong. I have chimes. I have all kinds of those sound instruments that I use for my big sound baths. So I'll go to yoga studios and I'll do a big sound bath. And they're wonderful because they're very relaxing and they're very grounding. So, but with a singing bowl, you can't get the higher frequencies because even with forks, so the smaller the fork, the higher the frequency. The bigger the fork, right? The bigger the fork, like a nerve fork, the bigger the fork, the lower the frequency. So you can't get a singing bowl in a frequency in the types of ranges we use in tuning forks. So singing bowls are great. I think they're kind of part of that past part before the 2012, where we're more about earthing ourselves. We're more connected to the physical matter, right? So because it works in the harmonic series, which is 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, the Fibonacci and the golden mean ratio, which is how matter is created.
Mm.
Whereas when we're working with the higher frequencies, we're working beyond matter. We're working in the astro planes and the cosmology of everything that Tesla talked about. So singing bowls, you just can't make a singing bowl small enough to hit those really high frequencies, is really what it is. And they're just far more precise. Singing bowls are really random, and they're really particular on temperature and things like that. The other thing is, when you travel, it's hard to travel with a collection of singing bowls, especially if they're crystal bowls and they can drop and break. Same thing with the big gong. You can put these in your purse and your bag and go anywhere in the world and help people eat. And they're honestly, a dollar for dollar, tuning forks are far cheaper than a good singing bowl or a good gong.
And would you say also that there seems to be more research that seems to justify tuning forks than they did on singing bowls, a little bit more or focused on that right now, or will be more and more than traditional singing bowls? Would you say the research has been more, the understanding by using tuning fork than singing bowl? There's been more research done on that.
Yes, there absolutely has. And a lot of that was with John Bulio, who started a lot of this in the 70s. They called him Vibrating John. And the reason is because we can make a tuning fork very precise in frequency, where singing bowls aren't precise in frequency. I mean, a good singing bowl is hand hammered, so when the Tibetans made them, they were made by hand. So you don't know what frequency you're going to get. Is that particular day, that particular artisan decided to use these particular metals and hammer it this way, right? So, when you're talking science, we need controlled studies. We need a controlled frequency. So that's why, and I also think it also just has to do with an attitude that people are like, oh, singing bowls and gongs, oh, that's something from a faraway country. So I think that's part of it too. As far as tuning forks go, they've been used for tuning instruments for a long enough time. They've been around and they've been fairly precise.
So when did the first world nations start using, the modern society start using tuning fork as a way of understanding, as a means to provide a service in the healing profession? When did that start? Do you know which decade that really started to catch on, this understanding of using tuning forks as a modality?
I think that really started from everything I've read. It really started with Dr. John Bulio in the 70s, when he put himself in a room, locked himself in a room and started doing this research. I think he's really that first pioneer. Now he's close into his 80s. He's still teaching every once in a while. But I was on a webinar with him about 2 years ago. He was on, him and a bunch of the other, the older guys in sound therapy. And he was saying he's really on a golf course now. He's got someone else who runs his whole tuning fork factory and all that, and he's a little more on the retired side. And that's what I was finding with some of these people, some of these guys that I was studying under, like my very first instructor, David Hulse, who again I just love and adore him. He's in his 70s, having a lot of health issues right now, but they were pioneers, and thank God they did this work. The problem was then they got comfortable selling home study DVDs and selling tuning forks, and they stopped. Then that's when all the research came out. Once they got comfortable, and all the research really just came out in the last decade. So they stopped, and it's like, oh my gosh, but there's so much more. Don't stop, don't get comfortable. And I understand that they did. They're older, and they passed the torch. So I will never stop on the science and research. That's the part I love the most.
So what do you foresee in this? It seems to be it's a new paradigm right now in using tuning fork as being, especially your method called TAM, the Alexander method, the acronym TAM, the most concise method at this moment we have. What do you foresee in the future? Where are we going with all this? What is your feeling about all of this? Where this is going in the next 10, 20 years?
I would hope everyone had at least an ohm fork in their house, just to calm their children and calm themselves, to help them learn to meditate, because meditation is so important. And I think if this helps them get to a point of meditation, that would be lovely. I think if you have the next point is to get some of the other forks that will help you depending on what it is you want help with, whether it's the physical body, whether it's the nerves or the bone or the tissues you've got, arthritis, or you are looking for feeling that love and peace, which would be more of the energy and the solfeggio. Most of my people who take my program aren't even doing it to become practitioners. They're just doing it for themselves. And they just do it on their family and friends, and they have other jobs and other things. So they're really taking it for their own de-stressing. So really it helps people de-stress. So I would love everyone to at least have some of this. I would love to have more and more practitioners though. So for those people who work in those corporate jobs and they shouldn't learn, they don't have the time to learn this, but rather than going to a massage, maybe do this as well once a month. I say you only need to really do it once a month. My clients hold. I test them, muscle test them and pendulum test them, they hold. I have a lot of massage therapists who come to me and they feel that they get a better response doing this than they do from massage. So I think we should be right up alongside there with massage therapy, because I think what we do is, and when I talk to all my practitioners, we kind of get into the back door. So I'll have some women who'll like make their husbands come, and they're like, "Oh, she made me come," because what happens is the women start vibrating higher. Now they're not quite as attracted to their husbands anymore, right? Or their mates. So they send them, and wouldn't you know it, it's those guys who have no expectation, don't believe in any of this stuff, who have those instant visions, have that instant pineal gland wake up, and they're like, "Wow, you wouldn't believe what just happened," or, "Oh my God, I was 3 feet above the table watching you, and then you pulled out that ohm fork and grounded me, and I went right back into my body." So they're the ones, because they have no expectations. So they have some of the greatest things happen to them in the beginning. So I would love to see this get to the point. We are nationally accredited through the same board that accredits massage therapy, but we have to pay more money to be there. They put us through more rigorous stuff, which is why I have all the science to even get into that board. I mean, they beat me up basically, but I'm there. They can't deny my science. I got 100 pages of it in my manual, and we're there. And I'd love to see us be right alongside of in the States we have the Hand and Stone and Massage Envy, and I would love to see them offering this as an option too for people.
Well, I think other nations like Canada, Australia, other Europeans or Asian countries, South American countries, have their own countries, have their own certification as being a justifiable modality to be of service to humanity. And I think the sound therapy is where we're going with all this, right? We've done all the physical, we've done the shiatsu, the body work. You name it, we've done it. Nutrition. Now we've mastered living nutrition. I think now this has been mastered. Now we need to master the sound aspect. And this is where we're going. I think it's very interesting that we need a lot more sound practitioners, Tuning Fork, and for guys also, not just for females, guys also can be practitioners. Yes. And so it takes a lot of courageous people to embrace this new understanding modality to be of service, because sound is very soothing. As we said in the beginning, when your mom hums tones, it feels great. So the Tuning Fork is a fantastic way. I think humans know when they lie on the table and you start using it, they just feel that loving, it's like being in your mom's arm, right? Yeah. So that's why it was so important that we brought you here on this interview to share the TAM, the Alexander method to humanity. And hopefully this will reach many people on the YouTube, and have them take your course and become practitioners. Because we need, to be honest with you, there's not enough people in the holistic modality in the sound arena. This is, even though it's been out for the 70s, I think it's still brand new compared to other modalities. And it's nice that you actually have been board certified, which is fantastic. So you lead the way in certification as being a very modality that's been shown through research, right? So there'll be more research in the years to come, and maybe we'll change things as we go on, but it's a beginning. So thank you, Alexander, for being of service to humanity, to bring this wonderful method to all of us and taking your precious time to have this interview. And I'd like to wish all listeners to go to your website, which is, can you tell us your website so they can go and look at all your beautiful tuning forks and the certification?
Yes. Yeah, it's very simple. My website's my name, lisaalexander.com. So it's simple. And Francois, I have got to thank you because I don't take the time to do YouTube videos because I'm very busy with my clients and students and I'm just serving them and serving them. And I have so many clients and students who keep saying, why don't you do YouTube videos to talk more about this? I'm like, because you guys keep me so busy, you know? So this is really wonderful. My clients and my students are going to so appreciate what the time that you've taken to allow me to express and explain so we can get more and more people into this. I am so grateful for you reaching out to me, finding me, and bringing me on.
When I saw you showed your Gateway Pineal YouTube videos, that's not enough. There needs to be more about her. There's not enough about her. So I decided to email you and you said yes. Is there anything you'd like to share that I haven't really asked you that you really it's important that you like to share with the listeners that we haven't touched upon? Or would you like to have a message for humanity or this sound therapy modality or for professionals or for practitioners that we haven't addressed that you'd like to share just before we close?
Just briefly, for those of you who are animal lovers as I am, I rescue shelter dogs, and I can tell you my dogs are just in my room when I work. You never put the sounds right to their ears. They're sensitive, but they'll be all excited when my clients come in, and the second I sign a Tuning Fork, they go to sleep. They're so calm. And there's so many animals that are stuck in shelters because they think they're all hyper and they're crazy, but an animal is a reflection of us. So as you calm yourself and learn to bring yourself into a heart-centered space and to bring your energy into this calming space, all our animals will be in that same space too. But if you're like this and you're in survival, your animals are going to be right there with you. So I think it can help animals in that respect. And same thing with children. Animals and children kind of go hand in hand like that. So I think we need to spread the vibes, right? It's this vibrational energy. The earth, the world, the cosmos, the Big Bang came into being with sound. Every religious culture out there that has a creation story that starts with sound. You know, the word was made flesh. Vishnu awoke with the sound of the vibration of the Om underneath. So it's there, and I just I would just want more and more people. If you're not interested in it, maybe you know someone who is. And the more people we get spreading the vibes and doing the work, I think will bring more love and peace into humanity just by calming people down and releasing the stress so they don't get so charged by every little thing that happens. And we realize at the end of the day, we're all one and we're all love, and let's just stay in that vibration of love.
Yeah, that's the reason I call my YouTube channel Omni Unity, to understand it's not just we come together as one, but also this other race is multidimensional, a different time, space, location, different cosmoses. It's a big playing field in creation. So yes, it's beautiful. And it's funny you mentioned that animals and children, but also the plant kingdom can benefit from this also.
Yes.
Plant kingdom.
Yes.
So,
they do. I have these beautiful African violets and everyone comes in and says, how are they always blooming? I'm like, actually what I do is like once a week, I go around with my angel forks and I just sound the angel forks all around the plants, and they always do well. And I clear my whole house and space with it pretty frequently too. So
that's beautiful also, because people that live in apartment buildings, it's very important because people are stacked over each other. So it'd be a great way to clear their apartments when they come from work, right?
Yes.
So
and it's easy. And, unlike sage, you can't burn sage, especially in those places because of the smoke detectors. Dogs don't like sage. I know that with mine. And what people don't understand with sage is that it's really a two-step process. You use sage to clear out the negative, but you're supposed to use a different herb, and I forget what it is, afterwards to bring in the light. And people forget that part. So now when you've pulled out the negative, you've created a void in the universe. And the universe doesn't like void, and who knows what's going to fill it. The angel forks do both. They clear and they bring in the angelic realm. They bring in the light. I had that one client from North Carolina I told you about, who travels constantly. He has a collection of my forks, and he said one night he was having a really tough time sleeping. There was just something not right going on. He took out the angel forks and cleared his whole bedroom, and then he went to sleep and slept like a baby. So he cleared out whatever it was that was disturbing him.
So again, they're very small tools. They're very portable. They're fantastic. They're amazing, beautiful. And they can be used to actually maybe to charge your water or clear your meal before your meal, right?
Exactly.
Because
I use it for that too. Yeah.
So when you go to the supermarket, everyone has touched the bananas, touched the avocado. So before eating your meal or drinking your water, if you have a distilled water, you can use that. It's another way to use the gel. So it's multi-purpose. It's not just the biofield, the chakra. It's for clearing your area. It's actually clearing your food, your water. You know, have you done a little experiment of using this in nature? If you were beside plant, did you feel the reaction of plants when you were using some of your? Can you share some of the experience you have using your tuning forks with plants?
Yeah, well, with the fact that just my own house plants do phenomenally well, even when I'm gone and they're not watered that well. But I have a little, I'm a gardener. I'm actually an organic master gardener. So I grow all my own vegetables and all of that. And if if we have a not so good weather, whether we got too much rain or too much drought, I will go out with my angel forks and I'll just kind of just sound them over the plants, and my garden tends to do better than everybody else's. And I even have a little fairy garden where I have a heart-shaped garden, got a heart-shaped rock in it that I found. I have different flowers. I have my bird baths in there, my bird feeders, and I have little angel statues and whatnot. And I just feel like when I go up, I have a little fairy house there. I feel like when I go up with the angel forks and just like I tingle, my whole body just tingles. It's like the angel bumps them around. So it's like I feel like the plants are saying, thank you. You know, they love the frequency and the vibration as well. Because again, we're all living beings. We're all connected to that matrix. So
well, we understand that the plants do sing also. The Damian Institute in Italy, they create a device that you can put a probe in the plant, and they use a transducer. You can hear the plant singing.
Oh, wow.
So when using the angelic tuning fork, you're actually singing back to them. So it's a co-creative singing, right? It's like you said, right? We sing and dance. Just to let the Hippocrates Institute in Palm Springs, Florida, they can use your tuning forks in their gardens there for living food. All the raw foodists, all the vegan people can use this on their meals also.
Yeah.
But even athletes or professionals, any walks of life, you know, fire people in the emergency, people that are pilots that are very stressed out, you know. So it reaches different facets of society, right? For meditators, yoga people, I mean, it's such a wonderful tool. So ladies and gentlemen, please visit lisaalexander.com website. All information is there. And please take the course. If it's not for you, you know, you can share with your loved ones, you know. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you. It's such a wonderful honor to have the information on YouTube. So once again, thank you. And hopefully we can see you next few months, see if you have any updates about your courses or you'd like to share more. So I sincerely appreciate that. So thank you once again, Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day, and we'll see you on.
Great.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.